Now it appears to be working. Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 448, Firewalls and Homelab Q&A. I thought firewalls would be a good topic today because there is a new version of PfSense out. And yes, I'm working on a video. Yes, I'm doing some updates. Yes, I'm doing some testing so I can talk a little bit more in depth about those features on PfSense. There's this weird, well, maybe it's my fault. Definitely my fault. We'll blame me. Weird problem I can have where people think I don't use PfSense anymore. And I'm like, we have a lot of clients using PfSense. And people are like, but Tom switched. Well, no, Tom also including uses UniFi, not exclusively uses UniFi. I mean, granted, I've done more UniFi videos, and that is mostly because there's new things to talk about in UniFi that I think people are interested in. But PfSense is still something we have with a lot of our clients. We still have it in our labs. I still have one of them here. I'm not running a lot through it because it's kind of been moved over to lab. So my actual studio is running UniFi, but PfSense still exists at CNWR. PfSense exists at many clients. And someone had emailed me and thought this was interesting, where they had asked me to do an updated video on boot environments. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because your other one's 2 years. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with it? And they're like, well, it updates slightly differently. I'm like, yeah, the back end works a little bit better. But functionally it looks the same. So there's nothing you have control over. But kind of back to what I say is my fault is I think people think everything's like all or nothing, and maybe don't. I guess for some YouTubers, if they're just a creator and they don't do consulting, business, and other things, they're just, testing in their own lab, which is fine. They're not going to use as many firewalls or have a variety of hardware. They're not doing customer support versus me being a practitioner where I'm doing these things for clients, doing consulting and talking to people about it. So maybe I need to make that more clear. I don't know. Maybe it's just because the people who only came to the channel for the one video, they seen a video of me talking about PfSense and later they see a video of me talking about UniFi and go, well, he doesn't like PfSense anymore. And I'm like, well, no, I do. I think, and someone wrote a nice thing in my forums, was talking about why they stuck with PfSense. And I commented, I go, yeah, I agree with all the points the person made. They like it. It fits their environment. It has a lot of features they use. Absolutely nailed it. And something UniFi still can't do today, August of 2025, as well as PfSense, is a lot of advanced routing features around things like IPsec. And if you wanted to have 4 open VPN servers, and I'm going to do an updated video because it's down to nuance when you talk about, comparing UniFi and PfSense. There's a smaller amount of nuance there than there used to be, because before I'd say, okay, they don't have this feature in UniFi and they do in PfSense. Well, now they have the features, and sometimes those features work differently. And for example, saying that UniFi supports OpenVPN is not an incorrect statement, and saying that PfSense has OpenVPN, also not a correct statement. But will it support your scenario? What if your scenario is, I need 3 separate instances of OpenVPN? Well, UniFi only allows 1, therefore it breaks your scenario. What if you needed a lot of extra custom settings within OpenVPN? UniFi has very few settings in OpenVPN compared to the plethora of customization options you get with PfSense. So now it comes down to use case and nuance. And that's why it's so hard, because I try to figure out how long the video should be. How much time do I spend talking about these things? And yeah, that's where it gets a little tricky. And let me scroll back in the comments here as I see a bunch of people jumped in. Good evening. Hello. Ahoy, ahoy. I love all the thing in here. I see people still running PfSense. And I got no problems with PfSense. There's some people who are, every version that's the open source version is the last version it'll ever make. I've been hearing that almost for 10 years now. But they did release 2.8. They don't have a fast release cadence, but it also is following more the philosophy of do one thing really, really good. And that's hard because, man, vendors want to be everything. You're like, wait, I provide this service. Can I provide every service for you? Can I be all encompassing to you? And I think that's where sometimes companies can miss the mark a little bit, or maybe a lot of it. It's hard to be multi-disciplined. Now with UniFi, they've done a decent job of moving into other adjacent industries like door access. And I think they've done a killer job on cameras. Door access, I'm a skeptic because it's tricky, but I really respect the fact that they're going into it, because the door access market sucks. And they definitely are filling the gap of it sucking. And it means there's going to be some bumps of them figuring it out. But I didn't realize, because me and my friend were talking about doing a door access video together, and I was shocked at all the things. I've not spent a ton of time. We've done some door access for clients, but recently I didn't realize just how much they have in their store for it. But back on topic of firewalls, there's a lot of nuance, and it comes down to scenarios. The other thing that is a challenge is that so many people over-index on the firewall's ability to protect you. Maybe this is too many Hollywood movies where we breached the firewall, we got beyond the firewall stopped them, the firewall failed, whatever those things are. It is the buzzword that people keep hearing. But if you look at the modern threat models, firewalls still have a role to play. I'm not here to tell you the firewall is dead, long live the firewall. It is more about the nuance of where the attacks happen. Firewalls are a component of your security layers. I am working on an entire video about layers of security and what modern protection looks like here in 2025. And, that'll change a bit over time, but at least I can give you snapshots of the tooling that is commonly used to protect it. And a firewall is not like the top of the line list of this solves most of the problems and everything else is nuanced. It's more like, yeah, firewall, it routes some traffic, but that phishing link, firewall is not likely to stop that. Fun stuff. All right, catching up all the things here. I see people like Tailscale. I overlay VPNs, I think, are great. Yeah, there's always been that way in tech, the kind of tribalism. Man, people get caught up of, I only like this product, and there's always someone. I'm going to grab one of these things. Is one on my desk here? I like some of the old hardware. This particular drive I've showed off once in a while before. This is where I think Connor made this. Is before Seagate acquired them. I just like the name of it. They were thinking about the future. They call it the Cumulus. And this is before we had cloud storage. This is from the 90s. Anyways, there's people who will, especially the gray-haired techs, the grumpy gray beards, the grumpy gray hairs, that remember this one time in 2006 when insert name of vendor that made a hard drive, for example, failed them, and they will never use that brand again for their entire life. So yes, there's definitely some tribalism in there. It's crazy. Hello from Sweden. Awesome. No more OpenVPN. Oh no, OpenVPN is still a thing. Definitely OpenVPN is a thing. You like Untangle. I liked Untangle until I feel like Arista. I don't know. I don't understand Arista's approach to it. Untangle had a good community around it, and they destroyed the community around it. And I don't understand why. What was that so hard to keep offering something to the community? Because the reality is the community likes to play and test with things. When the community plays and tests with things, the community is also usually people working in tech, and occasionally those people who work in tech make decisions on what tech goes in the company, and they will frequently use the things at home for their business. It is not an uncommon business model for like everything, but somehow Arista goes, what we're going to do? Zap that community, kill those home users that were buying licenses, don't allow them to renew. And they all went somewhere else. Let's see. Yes, NetBird, Tailscale, WireGuard. They provide overlay networks. Yes. I pointed that out in my recent video about SonicWall, I have not looked at the SonicWall news today, and I know SonicWall was kind of a problem where they're getting pwned and no one knows why. Several large research companies were doing it. SonicWall's response we're looking into it, but I did that video because after like 5 days, because I'm not a SonicWall user, I don't keep up with every detail of it, but obviously people are concerned. I posted like, hey, SonicWall's advice is turn off your SonicWall. That's never what you want to hear to a vendor. We don't have a fix. What's your fix? We don't have one. Just turn it off. Just make it go away. Like, but we bought the product to use the thing that we're paying for. And you're like, yeah, but someone's getting by it. So do that. Have you seen the hype around copy party file server? Seems cool having one in Python, but a security audit seems important. Security audits are hugely important, especially with vibe coding being a thing. And even when vibe coding is not a thing, the T app is a case study in how to do it wrong and do it really wrong. Like they did everything epically wrong. And based on anything I've seen, it wasn't even vibe coded. It was just poorly coded. You're still on PfSense, no UniFi or hardware. Yeah, I definitely like being able to run things on my own hardware with open source software. Definitely where my brain prefers to be. I do not love the fact that UniFi is more of a black box. I mean, you can SSH into it, so it's not locked down where you can't see anything, but there's still binary blobs there you don't have access to. Therefore, yeah, it's not the same as open source by any measure. Corey says, oddly enough, the first day SonicWall issue was the day the city of St. Paul started noticing unusual activity. They haven't released SonicWall vulnerability was involved in that. That is interesting. I wonder if that is a connection. Maybe they were among the first to get hit. It does appear to be some O-Day based on everything I had read up to yesterday, because I was doing other things today. High memory use for most UniFi. I don't understand why this is a problem for people. People keep going, Tom, did you see the memories at 50%? Are you having any problems? Well, no, but the memory. But is it working? Yeah, but the memory. If it ain't broke, I don't see, unless it's causing a problem, I don't understand something like ZFS is my favorite example of this. People complain about the memory usage that ZFS uses. I'm like, yeah, caches things in memory because the memory is free, so it sticks a bunch of stuff in memory. I'm assuming without digging deep into UniFi, it's probably doing a lot of the same things. What's a good resource for learning OpenSense? There's a few videos out there, probably their site. The challenge at OpenSense, and I've talked about this, why I don't use it. They have a much smaller team. They aren't really contributing back to the BSD. Therefore, they're kind of behind compared to security patches and PfSense. I pointed this out before. People get angry about it. They also don't have the level, and maybe it's gotten better over the last year. It's been a minute since I looked. They don't have the level of documentation PfSense has. One of the reasons so many people gravitate to PfSense, especially for commercial use, great support, great documentation. It's part of the ecosystem of any open source project. Isn't just to be a project that works well, but has to have documentation to go with it. So hopefully check their docs and see if it's better. SonicWall said today the problem is related to an already disclosed CVE. I don't know. Do I trust? Let's look up this thing because there's some. Where's the Huntress one? I honestly, and because I know them, I trust my friends over at Huntress. They are good security researchers. By the way, they cite other security. We got three companies. We have Huntress, Mandiant, and Arctic Wolf, all seeing the same things. So update 8625, the latest to its advisory at August 6th. SonicWall has high confidence that recent threat activity is not connected to zero-day fault, but instead correlates with activity to this is an improper access control fault first published in August 24 in SonicOS management, which can lead to unauthorized resources. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. It's improper patch, essentially. So this is the same problem Fortinet had. Now I get it. Improper patching, because your patch or process, it doesn't necessarily have to be the patch itself. It can be updated guidance. SonicWall has now updated its official guidance and is urging customers who have imported configurations from Gen 6 to newer firewalls. Update the firmware to 7.3. Reset all local user accounts and passwords with SSL VPN access. Huntress recommends that impacted organizations both local user account and upacon's password used for Active Directory. So sounds like the upgrade process was incomplete. This is what Fortinet did well, and this is also where things get really the nuance of security can be challenging. I tried to do my best to explain it to people, and I got in arguments, especially over the Fortinet stuff. And it's like when Fortinet had an update, if you had gotten hit before the update didn't clean up. I think it was the symlinks. I'm pretty sure that was it is in the notes. Believe the company WatchGuard had a really good write-up on what went wrong. And there was several other security researchers going, so you gave us a patch and you didn't have the patch do any other mitigations if you were potentially had this problem. Therefore, patching was closing the barn door after they had entered the system. That is just a huge aggravation. Obviously, a big fail on SonicWall's part. They should have understood that these could have been problems. And if they don't think through the process, that's a real problem. It was a problem for Fortinet, and it's how more people, it was also the same thing, confused at how the exploit was happening, and someone found out how the exploit was happening was the patch didn't clean up, basically, I believe it was some symlinks that allowed people to get back in. And it sounds like the same thing. PF support is great. I have the 4200 and also 3100, and a few times I had to get their support responses were quick, and my support was just a basic Netgate Plus. I've really contacted Netgate rarely for support, mostly because me and my team are very familiar with using PfSense, so there's a lack of need. But in the times when we have had a problem with Netgate, they have been fast to respond, and not because my domain ends in lawrencesystems.com. And that's a common thing. I will say for them, I've not heard many people complaining about their support. Their forums are quite active for people using the community edition and asking questions and, having a lot of advanced configuration help. And their support's always been quite responsive. What's all the hype about Ubuntu extended security maintenance? I don't know any hype about it, so I'm probably not the person to ask. So what is the best practice with an overlay VPN? Terminate on each VLAN or a router that should be accessible, or terminate on each server? Usually if you're going for the zero trust access, if you're doing it on the server level and then controlling all the permissions that way, so you're setting up 3 or 4 different servers, and this is where overlay VPNs become really interesting. Let's say those servers are not geographically bound to the same place. They're moving around. They're somewhere else. One's in a cloud, one's on-prem, one's on-prem somewhere else. The cohesiveness you get out of an overlay network saying, all right, this person needs access to these resources. I'm going to delegate based on their roles. And you create profiles for this, so you're not delegating each person, usually defining a role in your zero trust policy. That's part of your overlay VPN. And you say, hey, this person gets access to these resources. And suddenly you don't have to think about where those resources are because you're provisioning via an overlay VPN. Also, when it comes time to upgrade, as long as that resource lives where it lives, when you move it to a new server, you just move that over in your policy, and it doesn't matter where it's at. Everyone can always get to it. So generally speaking, you want to do it that way. But there are times, for example, IoT type devices, printers are an easy example of that, where you will have to set up termination so they have access to maybe a specific VLAN or network where that device is, because you can't load the overlay tool, such as NetBird, Tailscale, etc., on the IoT based device. This can also be for some of the different control devices you may have, specialized devices that you need to talk to, things that are running that can't run extra software. They're locked down by a vendor. So yeah, that's generally if you're designing it like a large architecture. Matter of fact, if you look even bigger, and I talked about them a while ago because I knew the guy that started it. Where is it at? Make sure I got the right one. There we go. I haven't looked at these folks in a minute, but that's how they built. This is another overlay network. They still have a free. This is Define Networks, but they have a tool called Nebula. Been a long time since I looked at it, but it was interesting because it's very much similar, but designed for server deployments only. It's actually how Slack managed everything. So you wouldn't, even though all the Slack servers have to have some levels of public IPs and set up in different regions, all the management side of Slack was done with an overlay network. So you provision things with your overlay network. So that was the only network that things could talk to. And it allowed for very granular control over permissions. Good afternoon. When configuring Linux NetFilter-based firewall, have you ever set up a connection tracking bypass for certain IPv4 traffic to reduce the memory consumption and DDoS risks? I am usually not setting up raw Linux firewalls like that. If I need DDoS protection, I'm usually the scale I operate at, usually Cloudflare. I mean, actually, scale a lot of people operate. Cloudflare is just a better DDoS protection. I don't expect or build DDoS protection systems right at the Linux level. I'm going to stick, because most of my stuff is web filtering of, websites and web applications. I'm just going to stick Cloudflare in front of it. I just rewired the whole office. I want to ask how you are doing labeling with your bigger projects. Pre-printing a lot of labels is common, where you will get whole sheets, like an Avery label template, and have them all printed out and just run and put the stickers on there. I think I may have a video where I've done that about labeling. It's in older videos. I don't do a lot of cabling myself. I haven't actually. Let's take that back. Tom has never really done a lot of cabling. Tom directly employed contractors, or actually employees for a little while, that did the cabling. So most of those videos are done then. We've farmed that out to third party. So I don't really do as much cabling videos anymore. Do you think PfSense will ever have something similar to Mercury's Auto VPN? I don't think that's their market. So I don't think they're going to have that. I don't see it. Overlay VPNs not via the router can introduce asymmetric routing with TCP, which you dislike, but firewalls should have a setting to allow this. Yeah, it's definitely can be. There are nuances you may run into. Most overlay VPNs, though, for example, they're going to Tailscale, Netbird both do this fine. If you're inside the network, it says, hey, the fastest path isn't through the overlay network or establishing it. Let's go here locally. And when you're outside the network, it figures out, hey, look, you're outside the network. There's no path. We're going to use this path. That's actually why a lot of that works nicely, because you can leave it on and it should work in both places. Yeah, the tail lock is interesting. I like that as a feature. I believe Netbird has a similar feature as well. They're both and I love this. There's more than one option. There's actually several companies doing this. Tailscale being among the most popular. Netbird being fully open source, versus Tailscale is only open source on the client, but not the control plane. And yes, Netbird is going through the roof with all the new features that went in recently or about to come. Well deserved. Love those guys. Yes, I'm a big fan of Netbird because they decided to open source everything from top to bottom. And they have a business model where you can have them host it. And I think for a lot of businesses, they'll choose that. And it's a great option. I think that's solid. I also know for all of us who are the tinkers of the world and want to be in full control, and it's just more fun to do it all yourself and build your own whole control plane system that you get to control the way it works. I like that they have that as an option. UniFi is not really an overlay, and I've done a 2023 edition. And there's probably a 2025 edition coming because there's more players. I know a lot of people have asked me about TwinGate, so at some point I got to throw them in there. They're definitely another option, and they're quite popular. They're a little bit different in the way they work. So they're not using WireGuard. They're using, I believe, TLS 1.3. So just a different protocol, but same concept of being an overlay network. They get a lot more into the zero trust side of it, but like I said, it's kind of cool. Let's Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think there are, because they use WireGuard, and I don't think WireGuard is FIPS certified. So that's a Google. Guard FIPS compliant. WireGuard is not FIPS compliant, so sorry, you won't be using them. And I hate to say this, but sometimes this is where policy and bureaucracy does not mean security, and it is what it is. You know, PfSense had to make changes for FIPS compliance, and some people are like, well, it's kind of a sidestep in security. I'm like, yeah, because the protocol they use, even though it's very solid and popularly used and very secure, it's not FIPS certified, therefore it can't be used. So they had to change some of the options in there. If you go to UniFi's site, you can look up the max VPN connection speed for each model, because it's not an answer, it's an answer per model. That is something, if you go to the technical details of each of their models, that is listed. Hey, thank you, Joseph. Glad you like the channel. I'm glad you find me informative, and I'm not just ranting today. Greetings from Scotland. I know you're friends with the guys over at Vates. I'm just wondering if you have heard any news or updates with their PV drivers. You know what video I'm working on right now? So yes, there is an update on them. The bad news, I'll give the bad news first. The bad news is they're waiting on Microsoft, and Microsoft is I don't know, we'll just say not a fast company when it comes to getting drivers certified. So they're filled out the forms. The good news is, now let's get to the good part. You can load them. You can set them up. And let me pull this up right here. We'll share this tab. This is the video. I got a lot of good things finished today, but not this video. But I have been testing, and I've been actually reloading and putting a process together. I am using the Vates drivers on this. They are loaded. They are set up. They work. I've had no problems with them at all. And the only thing that's a little tricky, and this is something I got to put on there. First, we have a clean process to get rid of the old drivers, which is on there. By the way, these are all downloadable from their site. This is completely available. I have no more special access than any of you. And you have to install this certificate to get it to work. So I'm going to do a video on it. I mean, you can see this is signed from about a month ago. I was hoping when they did this that it wasn't going to take as long, but they did an update that they're waiting on Microsoft. So what you have to do is install the certificate for Windows 11, for example. Easy install. They've got that install script. And once you install it, it will allow you to run the drivers, and it works. I had no problems with them. So we can use zero open source software or product unless there's a company we can pay for support. Well, you are in luck if you are looking at a virtualization platform, because Vates provides full support and SLA agreements. Hello from Riverview. That's Brett Brett lives almost 2 miles from me. I am in Southgate, Michigan. He is in Riverview, Michigan. So yeah, I seen you called, Brett. I ignored you, because how do you not know I'm here? Favorite video game of 2025? I'm still playing Ghost of Tsushima. I think I'm assuming I'm saying it right. So I don't know. I've not caught up to 2025 games. So I don't always play the latest titles. I want to play Cyberpunk next, I think. But by the way, email me, find me on Steam. It's easy enough to find there. If you have a game you want to play, reach out. Let me throw this up here real quick, because people have been slowly doing this, and people are learning. Tom actually replies to his messages. Yes, he does. I don't reply to. I mean, I'll send you to the forums if you send me a technical support message. But people who want to suggest a video or whatever is different. I like this Ghost of Tsushima. I'm going to start calling it that. That is good. Definitely good. Ghost of Tsushima. Any interest in detailed breakdown of various features and setup protocols for any of the aforementioned VPN? Deep dives into access lists and granular setup for noobs among us. Yeah, I have to do individually, because if I were to do a video to show you the granular setup of 4 different VPNs. It would probably be a 4-hour long video. But then again, maybe I've thought about it. I try to condense things maybe too much. I look back, and programming videos are probably an easier example. I look at some of the Python videos and I'm like, wow, that video has a lot of views and it's 4 hours. And before I like think that's too long, I go, let me look what else there is. That one's 6 hours. So yeah, I maybe I should make some long form videos on that topic. I am working like today. Part of the reason I get the videos, I had more back end things to do. There's like back end things occasionally where I look at how I'm producing content, tune things a bit, adjust things in the studio, think deeply about it. Can I up the production quality? That does sometimes cause some delays in me getting videos out, but in the end, it's mentally, I also update firmware. It's mentally good for me. I go through and like, does the camera have the latest firmware? Is this the latest update on this? Am I running the latest tooling on stuff? It's just a way for me to make sure everything is, maybe I get a little obsessed with it, but to make sure everything's working well. So when I sit down and hit record, I'm just recording. I'm not fiddling with things. I'm not retuning anything. I'm making sure the microphone sounds good and the audio quality is good. I only updated a couple systems in my lab from 2.7.2 to 2.8 because all of our clients are running PfSense hardware. I checked their forums in case there's any gotchas, but I didn't see any problems with it. 2.7.2 to 2.8 seemed to go fine. I have a video in general how to upgrade PfSense, and this is one of those reasons, again, not to make a new video. It's not different. If I made that video today, other than the tweaks around the office I may have made to enhance something or make the video quality a little bit better, the content would be the same today as it was. It's the same as I mentioned earlier when someone said, can you make a new video on boot environments? And I was like, well, not really, because there's not anything that's changed about them, which isn't a bad thing. PfSense is something people really like for the stability. And if you noticed, PfSense is not in the news for a bunch of egregiously bad things and problems and getting pwned. There's something to be said for that. I think that's it's a reason a lot of people go, it's not bad. Not to mention all the ever increasing licensing fees on there. Yes. I see someone said they've upgraded multiple units, no issues. How many different IAMs have you tried for WireGuard? So far, I've been mainly managing key pairs in config files, and Homelab scale is simple enough, but it doesn't scale. Yeah, WireGuard is a protocol, not really a VPN platform. And this was kind of the dumb argument I had, especially in the early days of WireGuard with people. Tom, man, WireGuard's so much better than OpenVPN because it has less code. It doesn't do as much. You can tie identity and other things into OpenVPN. OpenVPN has all kinds of extra things it can do. So yeah, for something that has the same functional process of we're a VPN, but doesn't have all the functionality, of course, is going to have less code. And that's what a lot of people run into. And that's what it was designed to be, was a protocol that could be used by something. We talked about Tailscale. We talked about NetBird, and both of those are things that use WireGuard in a back end, and that's how you manage the identity management component of it. You don't try to do it with WireGuard directly. I mean, you can code one. The code is open source. You can certainly build your own management tool. NetMaker. I was pausing on NetBird because NetMaker is also, I've not used it. It looked a lot more confusing to me when I looked at it. I know people tell me it's great, but there's some confusion with NetMaker because they had breaking changes, and someone can absolutely call me out on this, but Tom, their breaking changes were when you were talking about them in November of 2023. And yes, you're right. And no, I haven't looked at them in 2 years. So maybe they're completely doing things different now. Yes. And it's not like OpenVPN has sat still. If you're not familiar with OpenVPN DCO, DCO stands for Data Channel Offload. Data Channel Offload is a way to enhance the performance of OpenVPN and give you a performance level that matches closer to WireGuard. And it's a way to, much like it sounds, look at the papers on it. They have some OpenVPN themselves has good publications on what DCO is, how it works, and how much faster it is. Any interest in the Gram Stream firewalls? Their firewall looked pretty comprehensive last time I checked. But they only have 1 gig ports, and so they have 10 gig option now. You know, the challenge is there's not infinite amounts of time. Let's stretch out a little bit and talk big picture first. Does Tom have a vision? Yes. Does Tom know how to make this vision happen? No, but I'm going to share it with you folks. And maybe one of you will reach out to me at vlogthursday@lawrencesystems.com and say, I want to help with your vision. My vision would be to build a larger company around YouTube where I could have a team of people independently. I know there's going to be people that always say you're biased, but I would love people who can really independently evaluate firewalls for me, because when there's only Tom doing it, there's only so many hours that I can do so many things. Well, do I do TrueNAS? So I do another UniFi video. Do I test 10 different firewall brands and try to figure out what their differences are? I really would love to have more time, or by more time, maybe more people to help the time. So at some point, maybe I'll hire someone and bring more people in to do this. I love the fact that, like, Linus Tech Tips, granted, I know he's a little bit more consumer tech, but I think he's an informative channel overall. I don't watch much of it, but I know there's a popularity amongst it. Not here for your opinion on Linus, but I think that model could work as well in more of the things that I do. I'd like to do it. I've been really noodling around. I had a good conversation with my friend Mike. He wants to help me out with it. I've talked to some other people, and some people are like, I'm not ready to do things like that. But so I am working at it. Back to your direct question, no. Are there any interest in Grand Stream firewalls? Well, my problem with any firewall, whatever that brand may be, it has to, at minimum, and this goes for any product switching you do, but at minimum, product has to reach feature parity with the whatever I'm using. And if it doesn't at least reach feature parity, I don't have a real compelling reason to use it. And once it reaches feature parity, maybe I have a compelling reason to use it, but not exactly. It has to have a reason, a push to go, wow, this would make my life better. Now, a compelling reason can be it's substantially, not like 5% off, like substantially less money, substantially less wattage, better longevity. Well, longevity is almost a non-issue for firewalls, because I rarely talk about, because it's just not much to talk about. Modern hardware lasts way longer. Almost all the hardware we do is removed for obsolescence, not for failure. And that's why it's like picking products, and back to my vision, if I had all the time in the world, I would test all the firewalls in the world, but I don't have all the time in the world, so I have to test the ones that are most interesting. Same thing with the Grand Stream. I don't like, and I don't love this, and here we'll bring up another brand too, because they're doing the same thing. What is that company called? The other, they're the purple one. I keep wanting to say Arista, but it's not Arista. The other one is trying to compete with UniFi. So some of my people throw out that name on there, because they've been reaching out and trying to get me to do some more videos on them. But their whole thing is they put everything behind a reseller program. I actually appreciate that UniFi, there's a good discussion on Reddit the other day. Why does everyone have to only deal with resellers? Why can't they do direct sales? And I get it. It's hard doing direct sales because consumers can be wonderful and also not wonderful at the same time. And definitely drive up your support costs. But I do love, direct sales for a lot of things. And not Extreme Networks, no, and not Aruba. I don't know what's going to happen with Aruba. There we go. Alta Labs, nailed it. Alta Labs. I've talked to Alta Labs a couple times. I think Alta Labs is a nice company, but when they first told me they were going to really try to compete with Ubiquiti, I was like, cool, awesome. And I talked to them. And they have not reached feature parity at all, because UniFi didn't sit still, but they also is all reseller. So what they did was they tried to match a lower price point, but put everything behind a reseller. And for some people, they're going to be happier with that, because people don't like Ubiquiti for those reasons. And I don't mind that there's direct sale options. I prefer them. It's a good discussion on Reddit, how everything, too many people try to stick these things behind paywalls, and it's kind of a pain. Yes, Aruba is owned by HPE, and since they also own Juniper Mist, they will probably have to. No. This is more complicated. I posted this on LinkedIn. They have to get rid of the Aruba. I don't know what they're going to do, but part of the Justice Department approval, or is it the Justice Department or no? Not the Justice Trade Commission. Got the wrong organization. The government. We'll throw it out there. The powers that be within the government have decided that in order to close the deal for them to acquire that, they have to get rid of the Aruba line. That means they have to sell it. So Aruba was already a separate entity that they had bought, so it's going to become a separate entity again. I don't know if that means it becomes an independent company, they sell it to someone else. I don't know how exactly the details are going to work out, but it kind of leaves in question what's going to happen to Aruba. I don't know. But back to like the Ulta Labs options or even some of the other ones, and I seen someone talking about this, and this is going to suck, but there are a number of smaller YouTubers who are willing to scrounge eBay and buy used enterprise gear to play with on camera. You could try asking some of them if they're willing to evaluate new gear. I mean, I need someone who's really good at evaluating new gear is part of the problem. I need, and maybe there are some of them that are good. If they want to reach out, or if you know one of them and connect me with them, awesome. I always love reaching out to other YouTubers. I say hi to a lot of them. You know, what's kind of weird is I reach out to some of them and they email me back once and I say, hey, if you want to talk, just if I can help you in some way. There's no ask. I'm not selling them anything. And they tell me, I'm a big fan of your channel. Great. But then I never hear from them again. But one of the problems I think that's going to happen in the near future, it's probably happening now to an extent. So many of these companies are so locked into their licensing models that there's going to just be no secondary market for this stuff because you can't get the license. Once it goes out, it's done. And it's going to start sucking for people. I hope that doesn't happen, but it's just one of the ways the license of the world go. I don't think it's a great model, but yeah. We're switching to Aruba. Yes. Hold on. HP must get. Here we go. I mean, so it is a Justice Department. I was right about it the first time. Requires divesting and license and commitment safety, blah, blah, blah. So Aruba's in here somewhere. Greetings, son. Hello. Here's a Reddit post on the topic. So, yep, that's bad news. Let me share this real quick. For those you want, I'll throw the link in here. Yeah, you definitely understand the time constraints involved. You mostly focus on what you work with. Yeah, and that's the thing. Focusing on what I work with is easier because I'm working with it. I don't have to spend time researching how it works. I'm deploying and implementing it, so I know how it works. You know, me and Radal absolutely should meet up and have a water balloon fight. This is my favorite comment today, by the way. We're going to screenshot it. I'm going to send, me and Radal are friends. I'm sending this to him. I like this. All right, I'll send that to him. He'll get a kick out of it. Why do you prefer other hypervisors over Proxmox? I did a short that I don't think a ton of people loved. Hold on. But I'll share the link within the short. I don't hate Proxmox, by the way. That is where people constantly are getting confused of, well, you don't like Proxmox? No hate. Use it if you want. But this right here, which Sorry, I got the hiccups. There you go. Who owns your stack? This is a big piece. See, with XCP-ng, first, commercial support is really good with XCP-ng. Full service level agreements, reseller programs, all the things you need to be an enterprise company, which we are, that can offer support to clients with a backing of a business that makes the product itself. And not just makes the product. That's where this article is all about. All these other companies are orchestration tools, and Proxmox, Integrated Surface, Outsourced Foundation. I know we're throwing shade here at Proxmox, but by the way, Proxmox is an orchestration tool on top of Linux, on top of Debian, using the Debian repositories. They don't manage they don't maintain KVM. They manage KVM. That is not necessarily something that's going to be a huge problem, but it is something to consider, because if there was a flaw in KVM, who's going to fix it first? Is Proxmox going to patch the KVM? Or are they going to go, no, we're the orchestration tool, the flaw is upstream in KVM, we're going to have to wait for them to get it fixed? There's a little bit of fuzziness around all that. And the same thing with any of these other ones out there. When you look at the other companies that are all orchestration tool versus the Vates system, the XCP-ng is full stack, their repositories and full backup system, and fully open source top to bottom. There's not any, playing around here. And I know there's just not everyone is going to love that, because they just like, well, Tom, it doesn't have native Ceph the same way that Proxmox does. And clearly you've never had to sit on a consulting call with a bunch of people who broke all their data because Ceph upgrades don't always go as well as you'd like. And I get it that they've integrated a lot in there, but Ceph is one more thing they don't maintain, that they're just simply orchestrating on top of Debian. And that can cause some problems. So I like the supportability better of XCP-ng. It's extremely solid. It is an appliance more so than the other ones, and it's why I like it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using Proxmox. It comes down to the nuance of commercial support in businesses. It's one of the reasons I've stuck with it. Does XCP have anything equivalent to the Proxmox helper scripts? Because those things are maybe the most useful. What do the helper scripts do? Because I don't know. So first, I don't know what Proxmox helper scripts are. I guess I can Google it. What is a Proxmox helper script? I assume they're these. What are the scripts, though? View the scripts. This script provides options for managing Proxmox repositories. Okay. A standalone container installation. So they're plugins? Self-hosted task management. I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand. It just lets you do, but so for example, and you're not going to get the equivalent, because the equivalent's not going to exist in XCP-ng, because it looks like it's plugins for LXC containers. Or okay, this one's a VM. So Docker, Docker is an open source, blah, blah, blah. After script clean, VM summary console. So it's just setting up VMs. To create a new Proxmox Docker VM, what Linux version does it load when it loads a VM? Where is it pulling this VM from? I guess it's a Debian 12. It's a turnkey Nextcloud. So who's maintaining this? Like, who builds this and then who maintains it? I don't know. I'm asking. But these are, to me, really important questions. Who's building this? Can I trust them to build it? And I have this question because when people talk about Docker, I always say, all right, and this came up a Graylog the other day. I prefer Docker deployments of Graylog, but this is important. The Docker deployment of Graylog is managed by Graylog. So when you do the Docker pull for that, you're getting it from the people at Graylog. So I know who's maintaining it. I have a clear path. I have Debian Linux loaded. I've got Docker loaded in my Debian Linux. I grab the Dockerized version of it from the people who are maintaining the project itself. So whether I pull it and install something as a deb package, or if I'm installing it, that I want to know who is the maintainer. For example, UniFi. People go, but Tom, why aren't you using UniFi in Docker? Well, UniFi doesn't have an official Docker. You're trusting insert name of person who maintains it. Now, a good trusted source for a lot of Docker containers are the linuxserver.io. Those are good people that have a trustworthy track record. And for a while, there was two different really popular versions of the UniFi controller. And I would trust the one from linuxserver.io, but I don't know who the other person is. You talk about supply chain attack. Do you know that person? I mean, if I were to be a spy or wanting to get into something, wouldn't I just go ahead and maintain a really popular Docker package, share it with everyone, make a bunch of helper scripts, hope everyone uses it, and then go, haha, I've now got you. I mean, and that is what a supply chain attack looks like. We have to think deeper now about the sources of where we get things, because that's where a lot of the attacks are going. So there are shortcuts for lazy people. I don't know about that one, but Docker VM uses VM when I use Debian 12, and it pulls the Debian no cloud image. Yeah, I did hear about this, and that was sad, that the original helper script maintainer did pass away. I did see that because I seen some posts on Reddit. I follow the Proxmox news to an extent. Like, I knew of these helper scripts kind of, but I never dug deeper into them. I think KVM is managed by Red Hat. Let's see. This is actually part of the blog here. Red Hat was the key driver behind KVM, helping make it a serious contender in virtualization. But in recent years, the company, now under IBM, has shifted focus heavily towards OpenShift and container platforms. KVM is still maintained and support built by Red Hat that killed the main key, still supported and maintained, but Red Hat killed the main turnkey virtualization port, RHEV. Full support ended then, but traditional virtualization now feels like a legacy feature. Yeah, this is actually one of those things. Red Hat's not the best maintainer of things. And I say that because that, going back to TrueNAS, people keep asking, Tom, what happened to TrueNAS scale out? We were supposed to get a scale out file system. Whatever happened to that? Well, Red Hat happened. They just up and dropped Gluster. And when they decided Gluster was no longer a thing, the people at IX Systems who maintain TrueNAS goes, well, that sucks, because we were building all this on Gluster, and IBM decided Gluster, even though it was popular, was not worth maintaining, and just end-of-lifed it. And when they end-of-lifed it, it kind of sucked. Yeah, supply chain security absolutely can be used to check unknown scripts for the problem. Yeah. Supply chain security, I think a lot about. I'm very careful where my Docker things come from and what Docker I choose. And I'm not saying that makes community scripts bad. I just want people to think about it. It's not like telling you can't be a cynic and say, I'll never click any link in any email ever. Think carefully about each link you click. That's much better. I don't really do much with IPv6. That seems to make people angry, but I don't have a better answer. It just doesn't come up. I turn it off, and my life seems usually less complicated for it. Would you recommend PfSense over UniFi for a firewall? That depends on your use case. If you scroll back to the beginning, I did talk a lot about use cases. The big thing that is different between UniFi and PfSense right now is going to be way more flexible VPN options on PfSense. You've got a lot more diversity, a lot more knobs you can twiddle. We'll just say it that way. You can do a lot with the UniFi system or PfSense system for that. UniFi, though, if you're looking for any type of content filtering, that is just a thing that PfSense doesn't really have. There are some third-party add-ons I've never used, so I can't really speak to their efficacy. So that is a feature in the UniFi platform. So it kind of depends what you're looking for. What are your thoughts on having a Homelab on Fedora plus Podman plus containers and Cockpit UI to manage the server? I've never tried managing any containerization via Cockpit, so I don't know how good it is. There's a lot of good tooling out there to manage containers. I don't know that Cockpit, been a while since I looked at it, has any good features for container management. I mean, there's nothing wrong with running Red Hat and Podman or Fedora in Podman, but the container management, you might want to look around and see what works well for that. Since Docker come up, anyone running Docker Swarm? I am not at the moment. One of these days I'll plug away at it. I do believe my friend Radal, who came up earlier, who someone suggested I should throw water balloons at, he does have a video on Docker Swarm. Docker Swarm is pretty cool. If you run OpenShift, you're still doing an orchestration tool, because if I'm not mistaken, it's mentioned in here. Yeah, so heavily towards OpenShift and container platforms. But if I'm not mistaken, don't they use OpenShift just as container management? Once again, not the full stack. They're managing Docker, maybe Podman. I don't know. I don't use OpenShift. So Podman's right. So they're probably, so they actually do, if they're doing it with that way. So I didn't know Podman was directly supported by Red Hat. I started using Docker, so I stay with Docker. There's reasons that people have given me I should be using Podman. I don't worry about it too much. I would really try XCP&G if you have spare hardware and a spare switch port to try it, but I won't consider it until there's a dark mode. Hey, that is a fair argument. I have to suffer with not having a dark mode. I mean, you can use a plugin in your browser. I forget the name of the plugin because I don't use it, but there's a plugin that allows you to switch things to dark mode. Yeah. But you made a really good point there that I cannot debate that point, because I really wish they had a dark mode. They are working on it. The new version, which hopefully comes out later this year, will have dark mode. But as of today, August of 2025, there's not a dark mode, and you're completely right. Love your comments on the one-size-fits-all crowd. Every office has that guy that does IT. Working with this guy is always the hardest part of consulting. They break more than they fix. Yeah, I don't understand the closed-minded IT people. They're rarely ever the best IT people. I actually love IT people who say, I don't know. What do you think? Or want to have an engaging discussion. I'm that person. If someone said, Tom, what do you think of this? I don't know. What do you think about the helper scripts? I don't know what they are. Let's Google them together, folks. Let's have learning experience. There's a lot of IT people that seem to have strong opinions with no experience on some topics, but they are doubling down on them opinions because I don't know, because they do. I am confused. USA is quite far ahead in terms of IPv6 adoption, less of the world. Yeah, probably a little bit, but IPv6 adoption has kind of stalled. It's been the same with very little growth over the last few years. I've debated, do I do a video on that topic explaining why? There's some factors involved. And the biggest factor, what it really comes down to is, what is the business use case that makes a business? Let's say a company that's building widgets all day. They're building cars. They're building whatever, they're building hard drives, whatever the functional thing that this factory makes. What makes that factory better? Does IPv6 make it better? Does it make it faster? Do they really need, is their challenge in technology related challenge that they don't have enough addressable public IP addresses? That's where the problem really breaks down to. It doesn't align with better, therefore. And someone had a really good write-up on this. I'll dig it up again. I talked about it probably 6 or 7 months ago, but someone did a really good write-up of the comparison of why it's so hard and why these companies went this far, and that's where it kind of has stayed for the last number of years. On the same hardware, will PfSense and UniFi have the same router? Well, you can't run the same hardware because UniFi only runs on UniFi hardware, and PfSense will run on a variety of hardware. The only thing stopping me from moving Proxmox to XCPG is the native HA file system support. Ceph, that, as far as I know, missing from XCPG. They have their hyperconverged option, but they don't have. I've never really tried it. There is a way to run it, I believe, fully open source, but they use it as a separate plugin, and it's part of their like enterprise offering. But you're right that there's not any apt-get installed. There's not a Ceph function in there, so you were correct on that. I upgraded PfSense 2.8. My internet started dropping often. I received error 50. So should I reboot it? You could try that. Post and look in their forums. If you're getting a bunch of gateway errors, you just Google and spend some time in their forums, and usually we'll be able to narrow down pretty quickly how that works. Dark Reader plugin. Yep, that sounds like the right one. I have a few friends that use it. I minimize any plugins because I'm always afraid I won't be paying attention. A plugin will get hijacked. Because, by the way, a huge problem. Oh, yeah, good. Someone's saying it. You nailed it there. Browser plugins. There's a huge supply chain security problem. Absolutely. That is why I only have a couple things in my browser. And I am very careful about any browser plugins. I try to minimize any of them because I don't want any of them in there. For your consulting, do you offer more productized services or lean custom bespoke for each client? Any recommendations or guidelines for getting into consulting? So the MSP side, managed service provider, would be our productized service, if you will. Whether we're doing managed network or fully managing someone's computers, that is a productized offering that we do. There's a lot of bespoke things. That's almost always it starts bespoke. And that's just because people have some thing they need done or some problem or challenge they need solved. And it's like, hey, and movie companies are an example, as we've worked with quite a few of them now, and they have storage problems. And because I do videos on storage, they reach out to me and they're like, hey, I need X number of people. Let's say they call them editing bays in the movie industry. That's basically an office where an editor will be working. We need several editing bays. The movies are yay big and means we're going to need half a petabyte of storage. And we want to make sure our editing bays have really fast access to the storage server, solve for X, solve for the problems, build the network, build the solution that glues all that together. And then that may lead to us offering a controlled managed solution afterwards for that thing we did. So first you install the project, and this is also how you get into IT consulting. You will frequently, if you have an inbound lead system to find clients, you're going to be able to provide your expertise to solve the problem, and then you can sell them on a package to maintain that system, because IT isn't anymore like it used to be. Forever ago, in my early days in the 90s when I started, yes, there was a lot more set it and forget it or check on it every once in a while type of scenarios, but IT today is a constant level of updates, maintenance, and controlling everything. One viewpoint is a V4. You'll end up with a lot of ISPs using CGNet, what causes its own problems. And the real solution should be IPv6 and just assign /64 to each client. That way you'll never have to worry about getting your address blacklisted again. The other side of that is IPv6 is a bigger attack surface. One of the things we learned when we were doing some pen testing was there's rate limiting per IP address. There's rate limiting per IPv4, and there's rate limiting per IPv6. You can get a lot of IPv6 addresses. So if you were hypothetically going to pen test and password stuff, and you wanted to even attack a Microsoft account, ideally, you're just going to grab, and by the way, there's some really cool tools out there that completely do this. This isn't hypothetical. These are tools that exist right now. They do password spraying via IPv6. So you can have them automatically rotate through blocks of IPv6. So you can literally reduce your threat surface by turning off IPv6. My understanding is that enterprise IPv6 system will always lag behind because the extensive organically grown legacy SIMs, process procedures, and tech debt wrapped around IPv4. Oh, that too. Yeah. If someone has a bunch of IPv6 addresses and they scatter them around your network, now you've got chaos. I can more manage and control IPv4 ones because there's less of them. I can attest to an MSP, reach out to CNWR way out of the normal PfSense config. They are awesome. Thank you. Much appreciated. Since you might get near customer data systems, I assume your company must have a pretty large errors and omissions. Yes, we do. We do. That is something worth noting to someone says getting into consulting. I don't know where you're located, but wherever you're located, make sure you are in compliance with local laws and regulations, and also whatever insurance. And I don't know what insurance you need because that varies on where you are, but go ahead and, sort that out. Talk to local insurers and make sure you have what's collectively referred to as E&O, or errors and omission insurance. Any type of liabilities, you got to make sure they're covered. Good news is it's not that expensive, provided you don't have incidents. When you have incidents, it gets expensive. Knock on wood, our lack of incidents means our rates are as reasonable as they can be. I do like Chasm. I have a video on Chasm. I believe I do. Let me double check. I made that one, right? Right. I made a video on that. Sometimes it's my memory failing me. Nope. Got a good video on Chasm, the browser sandbox. Chasm's definitely great. Yeah. I don't deal with the insurance side of it. It's not something I have to do, so I don't do it. It is dealt with. It is just not dealt with by Tom. So that is something currently under CNWR's purview. What's with the mason jar, bro? Drinking glasses, shot glasses. Oh, by the way, let's do this. I'll throw a link in here for anyone wondering. I do get a lot of people asking, and whoops, that is completely not the link I wanted. Delete. Copy. I do have a shop, the swag shop, and we've been putting more shirts in there. And for anyone wanting, there was a couple people asked for a Lawrence Systems shirt to be put back, so we did. That's available. Just a little self-promotion here, but some of these might be funny. We try not to, and this is at many of the requests of people. I don't do a ton of branded shirts. I just want shirts that you think are cool, that you say, hey, I'm a nerd, and that seems like a nerd shirt I would wear. And that's what these are about. Or the one we'll go just the t-shirts again. I wear this one. I really like their Raid is not a backup one. And this one's been one of my favorites. I'm wearing it right now and I think it's a great shirt. So little self-promotion here. Did Ruckus end up fixing their issues? Well, story time. Ruckus fixed the first set of issues. Then a whole nother set of issues came at them again. So I don't know how many more issues are coming at Ruckus. I know that they have fixed some of their issues. I don't know if they fixed all their issues because, boy, where there's smoke, there's fire. And Ruckus is on fire. What they have not addressed in any meaningful way is their response. Why did you guys put a bunch of backdoors in your system? Why did you have just a egregiously bad response time on any of this? I even pointed out, because someone said that Ruckus had released some of the fixes at the time I released the video. They released the fixes, a fix. One of them I was able to find the day, I think it was, or the day before my video. And we'll get to the, a little bit of this nuance in here. They released some more fixes after, but when I made the video, I went to the website and showed people that if you sort on their website without going to the advanced, just like sort by new releases, not on there. But if you go to advanced, it shows up. I don't know why. And I said, and I didn't think to do an advanced search. I just did sort by new publications of security updates. Seems reasonable enough. I don't need an advanced search, or so I thought. So my bad for not diving deeper into the advanced search to try to find a security update. But you'd think when a company or security researchers dump a giant pile of crap on you, you make a public statement of how you're going to do better, that you care about security. You know, the usual BS things I hear from companies. Even if I don't think they mean it, I feel bad not even hearing anything. And I guess that's the question. What you tell me, folks, which is worse? I care about security, we're going to do better, or just silence? I don't know. I pulled this question up. Do you have any experience with HP Aruba? Yeah, some. I never had any problems with HP Aruba. One minor issue that I thought, and this is why I never bothered reviewing it. Reviewing it a second time. I did a review of HP Aruba. Looked at their stuff. We actually had some clients with it. It worked, right? But they're cloud. So this is where it gets fuzzy. You can read the features on the box of the HP Aruba, and you're like, cool, it has all these cool things it can do. Then you tie it to the Aruba cloud, and all the things go away. And I'm like, why can't I do these things? They're like, oh, we're working on the Aruba cloud, and it's going to have those features. But I'm like, it's kind of misleading that it's a cloud managed tool, but if you attach it to your cloud, you have less features. 3 or 4 years go by, they want to reach out to me again. And I look, and they're like, we'd like you to do a video on this. And I say the same thing again. I'm like, so your cloud got like 1 or 2 more features in 4 years. Like, is there actually a roadmap? They had a whole list, like all the features would be there within a year. 2 years later, I haven't looked lately if there's any features. So it's kind of, I don't think it's a bad product, but the nuance of the the switch has all these features until you attach it to the cloud doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Yes, ruckus definitely caused a ruckus. Regarding AI advancements, what do you think this does to IT developers or careers? AI is a tool that's probably not going away, but it certainly hasn't lived up to the hype. It is not replaced everybody. It is, fancier than spell checking. It's definitely, I like some of the cool, useful side of AI, but it's overhyped for what it actually delivers. So I don't know where it's going to land. I think there are some fundamental problems with the way we build AI that will stop it from being the drop-in replacement for a technician. And that is, of course, the promise is that it will be. And that promise has to be said, even if not true, because OpenAI burned $5 billion. Billion. They lit it on fire. And they don't plan to make money this year either. How do you get someone to give you that much money? Is you got to make a really compelling promise that it will change the world. It is going to be stupendous, amazing, and hyped up to whatever it takes to get people to give me the kind of money that they have lit on fire. And that is an insane thing to me. So while I do see the benefits, and I love self-hosted AI tools, I think they're amazing. It's one of the cool outcomes of this is that we have a lot of options in our hands that we can control within our own home labs and domains. And I think that's great. That is a great outcome. And it has some neat uses. But $5 billion? Think about that. Burning, this lighting $5 billion. And by the way, saying I've burned $5 billion. I need more. And when they ask is, when are you going to be profitable? As soon as it replaces people, any day now. Really? You've been saying that since 2021? Random question. Is it possible for a firewall to have more physical interfaces? Is there a limit on how many physical interfaces a firewall should have? Does interfaces just add cost? I don't understand the complete context of your question, but I'll use PfSense as an example to try to answer. You can have X number, and I don't know what the upper limit is, but a lot. You can have a lot of physical interfaces depending on the hardware. You're more hardware bound and limited, but you can create virtual interfaces on top of that as well for like VLAN. So the limit, I don't know where that limit is in software. It's usually more hardware limitations. In PfSense, below your block RFC 1918 rule, you usually allow subnet any instead to allow all outbound and specific allow rules as a zero. I'm not understanding the question. Maybe it's better detailed out in the forums. I mean, are you talking about creating blocks outbound and only allowing implicit? You can do that. I maybe that's where you're going with it. You can do that where you say only allow these specific things. I guess that's kind of a zero trust where you're saying they can't just talk to anything, and you can be very detail oriented about each connection. That's less how zero trust is defined. Zero trust is really defined as by NIST about position in the network is not where the privilege comes from. That's kind of this shortened version of it. But just because I'm inside or outside your network doesn't implicitly give me access to other things. There's other forms of validation. And this is where people really over index and over worry about IoT. Like, oh no, there's an IoT thing next to my computer. You know, it may jump out at me. It may scan my IP. Well, why is your computer listening on anything? My computer's not. Matter of fact, you know, even Apple, I have a MacBook Air I like because it's got good battery life. It's great to just carry with me because it's small. I got the little one, and I send emails on it. It's a glorified Chromebook. But out of the box, I think Apple still has too many things turned on. So I turn them all off. I don't want it listening to anything at all. And that's how I treat my device, because why would I ever want an inbound connection? My computer that we're sitting at right now, there's no inbound connections allowed. Block that thing off with a firewall. Start there. That's will put you in a good security posture, thinking a lot like that. AI is a fun assistant to ask questions for when you're sorting things out in your home lab too. Definitely, for sure. You have an Aruba 2920 in your lab. That is fine. Yeah. Now, this is what I'm talking about. The device itself has a lot of capabilities. Is when you connect it to the cloud, the capabilities are lessened. Are you better offline? Yes. Yeah. Ed does a great job. I do like better offline. I'm definitely a fan of the way Ed rants. He just did an interview with the person who does Web3 is going fine. I can't remember her name right now. It was a good interview on his last episode. That is the Better Offline podcast, just to be clear for anyone that may be wanting to listen to that. Yeah, 4096 is the VLAN limit, so fair. You can only create that many VLANs. Regarding your consulting business, seeing how to suspend their account, I have no context for that. But if you just in general, we help some people avoid the cloud because it's not a fit for what they're doing in business. Did you try Kia DHCP 2.8? Wanting to make a video. There's not much of a setup process for it because if you're already using the old version, it just transfers over. But yeah, I might do a video on Kia, and I was waiting to do it because I wanted it to be updated in not just CE, but also now the 2507 plus. That way I like when I can say this video applies to PfSense CE Community Edition and PfSense Plus. Having both of those answer makes a lot more sense. I'm using Tailscale as a VPN server for remote access for my company. Is there any risk because I personally got tired of issues with ZywL firewalls, especially the company using SSL VPN? The risk for anything comes down to who is in control of it. So with Tailscale, the protocol they use is good. The platform they have is good. So make sure you have clear and solid control over the control plane. And what I mean by that is with Tailscale, the control plane is their site. They have you tied to, they don't do identity. So they use third-party identity providers for single sign-on, which is great. and make sure you have clear and solid control over that, because your risk factor is, hey, I've got control over your identity plane and I'm going to add me to your network. And maybe you don't mind if I'm on your network, but let's just say someone else, you don't want them on your network. Therefore, that is the big risk, is making sure you keep the control plane itself. But Tailscale itself is well maintained and a good product. Speaking of zero incoming connections, you use Linux for video editing or sterilize Windows MS Snoops way too much. So video ingestion, as I refer to it, I have a studio computer. It's called Stu. And Stu is where OBS runs and all the cameras connect to. Stu then has a connection it makes over to my TrueNAS, and that's where Stu drops off all of its data, where I pick it up and edit it inside of Linux. So not as much a sterile environment, but definitely a separation. But I do need a drink of water. So what I'm going to do here is, let me find this. Let me change this real quick. I'm going to throw my Be Right back up because I am thirsty and I want to talk more, and I don't want to run out of, I don't want to break my voice. I'll be right back. There we go. And I'm back. Got to catch up on the comments now. Where are they all at? Let's see. This is a fair to pick up where I left off with the Tailscale. Yes, you could definitely get more granular with the controls to make sure they're as tight as they can be. Ideally, you don't want open access. You want delegated access to only meet the needs. So only a connection from here to here. But if that person doesn't need access to some other service, they shouldn't have access to that service. Principles of least privilege should always be followed. Do you prefer keeping physical interfaces on the firewall separate or stacking? For example, a 10 gig interface with a VLAN. Appreciate that. It depends. And let's talk about this a little bit bigger. Do you need full bandwidth? Because if you're doing a bunch of ports that have VLANs on it and a hair painting, as you mentioned here, yes, that's going to be a bottleneck. And to avoid that bottleneck, putting each on a separate port, but that comes down to needs. I don't know what your needs are, but if your needs are such that you need full speed, then yeah, you wouldn't want to put things on there and hairpin. And I have a video I've done on storage design. If you look up in my channel, I talk about storage design because a lot of times you don't want to put your high speed needs. Earlier, I talked about solving problems for movie companies and putting them on a separate VLAN where they routed all their storage for the firewall would just be a big bottleneck that would be less ideal. So do you know any AI for PfSense? I don't know what that means, but I will mention AI does know PfSense. So if you have PfSense questions, because there's so much documentation, forums, etc., the training models have been trained on a lot of PfSense data. So it's actually pretty knowledgeable about PfSense questions. SSL VPNs are once again a problem. Yes. Yes. Is there such equivalent as a self-hosted Tailscale? So NetBird allows for self-hosting, which NetBird is very similar to Tailscale, and that it's an overlay VPN system that uses WireGuard, and you can self-host it. Alternatively, there is a tool called Headscale that is a third party, no relationship to Tailscale, but does work with Tailscale. So Headscale is a tool that you can use to self-host Tailscale, but there's some nuance to doing it. I did a video about it in the early days. I think the project has matured a lot. There's things you have to do inside of Tailscale because by default, Tailscale wants to talk to the mothership, the Tailscale hosting platform. So you have to go in and change where it points to. So it points to your instance. That's one of the reasons I would, if you're looking for the self-hosted route, NetBird already has a complete package. Oh, look, someone mentioned that right here. The backups being integrated XCP-NG are a great feature, and I've mentioned this many times in my getting started with XCP-NG videos as well. You can use it for free for you home users simply by compiling it yourself. You get all the features, and yeah. Veeam is implementing support for XCP-NG. Yes, Veeam is realizing that they need to play with, well, more than VMware, because VMware has become still in the enterprise, but probably a less popular choice outside the enterprise. And even some enterprises have definitely reconsidered their VMware strategy. So yeah, Veeam is trying to pick a winner. Vates has engaged with them in the forums in Veeam to let them know that they will help them along their way. So you're the only one managing that. Awesome. So you're, as long as you, like I say, as long as Gmail properly set up, Google does a good job with security, and you can complain all you want and be completely right about Google not being your friend when it comes to privacy. But damn it, Google's good because they don't want anyone else besides them harvesting your data. So they do a great job on security because it should be only them that gets to understand and have your data. Yeah, this is one thing. The ACLs, I think, is like someone had said here. NetBird has a ACL manager, and I think it's been a minute since I looked at Tailscale, but I think in Tailscale, you still have to do it all in JSON. Hair pinning and router on a stick. Yeah, kind of. Yes, that's what people are talking about. I mean, I remember in the olden days seeing this set up. I don't see it. I mean, I can't say I don't see it. There's things that are still plugged in and blinking. As long as the blinky lights are blinking and some packets go across it, even if it's slow, people will seemingly keep things forever. But I don't see as many router on a stick setups. AI that detects traffic and analyzes it. No, that would be something separate. I have a video on Security Onion. I believe Security Onion has some new AI features they added recently. Maybe I'll do an updated video at some point, but it's an external thing. There's not anything in PfSense. And generally speaking, PfSense is not meant to have GPUs in it that do any type of analysis. That's something you probably want to do externally from your firewall. It also, kind of a common concept here, is threat surface. You want to minimize what's in your firewall. Do you really want the control plane of your system that is monitoring, and also if it's AI reading things, tied directly to the firewall? Maybe not. Especially one of the challenges that a lot of people have run into with AI, there's a lot of breakage. AI has been a security nightmare. All the old problems are new again. Ubiquiti has the AI key, and that thing is pretty cool. I did a video on it, and I'm going to do an updated one because the software has gotten better and we have more cameras attached to it. But the AI key, and I like what they call it. They call it like find anything. And that's really what it does. It helps you find anything. It's great. Yes, VMware has become a very toxic subject. Broadcom made it toxic for sure. Oh, cool. So Tailscale has an ACL option in beta. That's good. Do I use FastNetMom open source? I do not. Nope. I do not have a DPU card set up for PfSense. So I've heard two things: either it's in beta or just announced their visual policy editor. But either cool. Either way, it's cool that they're, they've been still iterating at the product, adding more features. That's what we want to hear. A piece of tape on the ground got stuck to my foot. Silly things that happen. I worked at places where logs and such are pushed into a separate environment via one-way diode. I don't know about a one-way diode, but definitely a port tap. That would be more common. I don't even do VPNs on a firewall. I have additional appliance and a DMZ to handle VPN connections. But in enterprise environments, you start splitting things out. You have separate VPN devices. They're not necessarily the same thing as the firewall, especially when you operate at scale. Oh. Do you expect UniFi and other vendors to add overlay options? I don't know. I mean, UniFi kind of has, I can't really call it I have to log into my UniFi to remember the name of it. Because I don't use it. It doesn't feel, I mean, it doesn't feel, it is not. We'll just call it out what it is here. What do they call their VPN tool? Teleport. The teleport option by them, not quite as full featured. I don't know if that's the right place. Like maybe UniFi wants to get into overlays and that would be cool. But I like that companies like NetBird and Tailscale and many others. What's the other one? Man, there's another one. It's on the tip of my tongue. Because I said it earlier. Anyways, there's lots of companies out there making these solutions and focusing on making that solution. Now, it doesn't mean Ubiquiti is a big company. They have like a $25 billion market cap. Doesn't mean they couldn't build a solution or buy a solution and integrate it, acquire one of these companies. I don't know. Maybe they will. That's hard to predict exactly where they're going to go with it. But there's so many companies doing a good job on it. Then let those companies run with it. Have you had issues with HA deployments of PfSense? Just curious. Twingate, that was the other company I was trying to think of. Back to the PfSense question. Have you had issues with HA deployments with PfSense? I mean, yes, no. If we set them up and we follow the instructions and we maintain them, no, they work great. My consulting has brought me people who did something different than the instructions. We'll just say that. And so it's not that the problem wasn't with the PfSense. The problem was with the implementation. PfSense, when set up properly, works quite well. But like anything, if you use anything wrong enough, you can turn it into a smoke machine. I've always liked that. I've shared that meme many times where it's I know it's probably wrong, but it's Chernobyl and there's all smoke and it says if you use anything wrong enough, you can turn it into a smoke machine. Yeah, I think this is what people don't realize. People keep saying they're not a big company, and I'm like, they're worth 25 billion. Now, granted, we're talking about OpenAI, who is able to just light $4 billion a year on fire. I mean, so the numbers, we don't even talk about millionaires anymore. Millionaire, what's that? If you're not a billionaire, are you even in the 1%? Everything's got a B on it now, or million. If your company does $1 million, are you even in business? Is it a hobby? Sorry. Doesn't DMZ mean having open ports on your network? No. DMZ is an interesting concept, and maybe I should cover this because the zone firewalls brought it back. It's UniFi. When I did the zone video, they have DMZ. DMZ is an old concept of demilitarized zone, and it's an area where you may put things where you allow access to it, but it doesn't have access back to your other network. That's usually the default policy. So it's where you'll put things where you do. It doesn't mean the ports are open, but it is a place where the things you're going to open up ports to live. So it's a different concept, but maybe I'll do a video sometime on that. Scale down of the agentic AIs doing so for home networking could be interesting. Yeah. I want to do an N8N video at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. I do wonder if there'll be consolidation in the next few mergers, overlays, and such. Mine, look at what Arista didn't produce. Yeah, like I said, I mentioned this way earlier in the video here. Why did Arista buy Untangle and kill the community around it? That's your community is your pipeline to the product. So in the open source, and Untangle used to be open source, the open source community rallies around things. The people that enjoy the product get a discussion going. They become your helpers and maintainer. There's companies that embrace this really well. I think one of the amazing examples that has lasted for years is TrueNAS. TrueNAS is still open source. They still have community. They've done an even better job of engaging with the community because they're making a lot of design changes, and they're not arbitrary, but they have to be made to get things done. And if you haven't followed the TrueNAS podcast on it, they are really good at being transparent about what they're doing. Love hearing it. Awesome. That's what we want to see. That's what our expectation is. Let's get these people talking about, not, and then they do it in the forums, but I think it's better in a podcast with Chris on that podcast. But that's a great job of doing it. Arista just went and did the opposite with Untangle. Like, we're going to buy it. We're going to kill the home user licenses. They're paying people who like your product. Yep. We're killing it. Yeah. Let's see here. What is the Cisco market cap? Cisco's current market cap is $276 billion. So they're 10x the size of UniFi. And of course, Cisco is a company more than just networking, Duo, identity, and all the other adjacent things they have. So quite a bit there. But yeah, Cisco's obviously a major player. I believe the stock is UI market cap. 27 billion for Ubiquity. So still exactly 10x for that. How much should HPE pay for Juniper? That's a good question. $14 billion. So Juniper was worth less money. That's kind of strange to think about. Juniper was worth less money than UniFi. Where's the... But it's a $14 billion. Yeah. 14 billion. Think about that for a second. UniFi is worth more than Juniper. Yeah, to put things in perspective, if you put $1 billion in a simple savings account, 1% interest, no compounding, that would be $10 million a year. Yeah, it's wild to think about. Yeah, I don't know what they paid for Untangle. I will admit, as a creator engaging with Untangle, they could care less that I made a video about them. No sharing of it, no thank you. Not that I'm looking for a thank you, but generally speaking, someone says, "Hey, thanks, person who shared this. Can we send you a t-shirt?" I don't know, whatever that might be. Nothing, dead air. And I knew other people said the same thing. They just no engagement with that. So the community around them was pretty good, but I don't know. Do you deal with healthcare organizations for consulting? I have healthcare IT for a decade. I want to start consulting. All the regulations, HIPAA. But all the regulations. Yeah, you have to be aware of them. We refer those companies as encumbered by those. You have to be aware of them, but you got to remember they're ultimately responsible for it. You just have to make sure whatever you're doing doesn't break any of their compliance framework. And by the way, if you're following a lot of security best practices, you're probably not breaking compliance frameworks. And if you're going to consult in healthcare, read through some HIPAA stuff, take a class, get to learn it. Juniper plays in limited markets. Yeah, that's no way to say it. Juniper's not the everywhere company. They're a higher end company. See you in Miami. Hello, Mac Telecom Networks. Yes, I will be in. I got to finish registering for that. That's a good reminder. Thank you very much. I will get my registration done for that. So, I get that companies buy things to kill them off, but it's weird because I get it when you buy a competitor to destroy them. But Untangle was just a weird purchase. It never made a lot of sense to me. I think UniFi is a different market. It's whatever real network company left on the market, and it's whatever the real network company left on the market and dominate by them. Getting home user students to use solutions, get them placed in enterprise. The IT guys can play with it at home. Gets accepted. Broadcom VMware. We'll learn this the hard way. Yeah, there's a lot of VMware. Same thing. The different VM mug and communities they built around VMware got people very familiar with it, and that's what made VMware very popular. And of course, that was the solution everyone deployed. It was a good solution until Broadcom just broke it. And yeah, and here we are. But we are also at an hour and 40 minutes. I love talking to all of you, and I will maybe do this again on the weekend in the morning. I'll figure that out. I want to have one of my friends come on, and I got to do some scheduling to get a few of my other YouTube friends on. I've been saying I'm going to do it, and I'm putting it out there that I'm going to get that going. Because we have more than one of us banter, but I love hearing from all of you. Hit me up at vlogthursday@lawrencesystems.com. Homelab@lawrencesystems.com still works. And like I said, I like hearing from people. You can find all my socials, whatever they may be at the time you're going there, at lawrencesystems.com. And if you want to reach out and talk about video games, reach out at lawrencesystems.com. I put my video game link on there too, because I've been trying to do that to relax a little bit in the evening. But this evening, I'm going to go goof off on my motorcycle. So that's where I'm going to head from here. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Awesome hanging out with all of you. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks.